December 29, 1972. Eastern Airlines Flight 401 departs from New York, bound for Miami. Aboard the plane, 176 people, including passengers, crew, and two experienced pilots, Captain Bob Loft and First Officer Don Repo. The flight is routine, smooth, but as they begin their final descent into Miami International Airport, something strange happens. A warning light indicates that the landing gear may not be properly locked. The crew decides to circle while troubleshooting the issue. They become distracted, and in the chaos of trying to fix a $12 light bulb, no one realizes the autopilot has been accidentally disengaged. The aircraft begins a slow, silent descent, and at 11:42 p.m., Flight 401 crashes into the dark waters of the Florida Everglades. 101 people die instantly. 75 survive, many pulled from the wreckage by nearby airboats. It was one of the deadliest aviation accidents in U.S. history. But what came next was even more terrifying. In the months following the crash, Eastern Airlines quietly salvaged parts from the wreckage. Some components, like ovens, galley equipment, and even cockpit instruments, were still functional. Rather than waste them, the airline repurposed these parts into other L-1011 aircraft. That's when the reports began. Flight attendants, passengers, and crew started seeing strange things. Men in pilot uniforms appearing and vanishing in seconds. Cold spots in warm cabins. Voices whispering in empty cockpits. Some claimed to see the face of Captain Loft reflected in flight panels. Others swore that Don Repo appeared, warning about mechanical failures before they happened. At first, Eastern Airlines dismissed the stories. Stress, fatigue, imagination. But then, too many witnesses came forward, including senior staff and high-ranking engineers. After the mysterious DC-9 was towed to Hangar 3, airport authorities brought in federal investigators, aviation specialists, military consultants. Even retired pilots were called to identify the aircraft. But no one could. There were no flight logs, no manufacturer tags. Every serial number had been scratched out or melted away. When investigators entered the cockpit, the control panel was cold, but the instruments had recently been active. The altimeter was stuck at 37,000 feet. The radio still crackled with static. The autopilot was frozen mid-course. A single clipboard was found on the co-pilot's seat. On it, a handwritten log. The first entry, departure from Caracas, 8:42 a.m. But no year. At the bottom, scribbled in shaky penmanship, "We never reached our destination." Forensics teams searched every inch of the aircraft. No biological traces. No fingerprints. No evidence of human presence, except for a single shoe, size 10, tucked under a seat in row 14. One mechanic who entered the cargo hold later reported something chilling. He claimed he heard faint breathing coming from within the fuselage. When he turned around, no one was there. The hangar lights flickered, and for a split second, he saw the shadow of a man standing in the cockpit, staring back at him. Then it was gone. He refused to return to the hangar ever again. Within 48 hours of the DC-9's unexplained arrival, the aircraft was placed under maximum security. Armed guards, perimeter fences. Access restricted to top-level officials only. A government-issued gag order was quietly distributed to airport personnel. Any breach would result in termination or worse. Despite this, rumors spread like wildfire. Someone snapped a photo from a maintenance tower. It showed the DC-9 parked alone. Lights on, even though its power systems had been disconnected. Zoomed in, you could see the cockpit illuminated. And behind the glass, a faint outline of a man in uniform, motionless. But no one was supposed to be inside. The image was uploaded to an online forum, and within hours, thousands had seen it. Then, it was removed. The account that posted it, deleted. The entire thread, wiped. One air traffic controller claimed he was approached by two unknown men. Black suits. No badges. They asked only one question. "Did you see the pilot?" He said no. They nodded and left. But it was the events inside the hangar that terrified staff the most. Sensors inside the plane began transmitting phantom data. Altitude changes. Cabin pressure fluctuations. As if the aircraft was flying. Flight logs auto-printed from the cockpit printer. But the ink was faded, as if the entries had been typed decades ago. One technician swears he saw a stewardess reflection in the galley mirror. He turned around. No one there. But her name tag was visible in the reflection. Sime. A quick database search showed that Maria Ramirez had worked for Trans-Caribbean Airways. She died in a mid-air collision in 1969, and the plane she worked on, with no surviving wreckage ever recovered. After weeks of silence, authorities announced that the unidentified aircraft would be dismantled for aviation research. But that never happened. One night, without warning, the hangar was locked down. Cameras disabled. And by morning, the plane was gone. No records. No transport logs. Not even tire marks on the ground. It had vanished completely. Some say it was loaded onto a secret military carrier. Others believe it was buried deep in the desert. But a few witnesses claim something else entirely. They say the plane didn't leave. It faded. That on the final night, the air around the DC-9 began to shimmer, as if reality itself was breaking. Lights flickered. The floor vibrated. And for a moment, the aircraft became translucent, like a mirage. One mechanic said he heard voices, whispers, calling from the cockpit. Then silent. When investigators returned, there was nothing. Just an empty hangar. No evidence. No serial numbers. No trace that the plane ever existed. But too many people remember. The photograph. The logbook. The shadow in the cockpit. And that flight number. The same number linked to another ghost flight decades earlier. Are these time slips? Dimensional overlaps? Classified technology? Whatever the truth is, the sky holds more than clouds and planes. It holds secrets. And sometimes, they land. Subscribe to SKYPLUS, because the next unexplained arrival might already be on final approach.